When the shuttle broke through the lavender clouds of Arendor, Captain Elias Varen thought he had seen beauty before, but nothing like this. The alien world stretched beneath him like a painting of glass and light, where floating spires shimmered in colors that refused to stay still. Each hue melted into the next, alive, breathing. Yet none of that beauty matched what he saw next. Her. He hadn't even stepped off the ramp when his gaze caught hers. The princess stood there unmoving, her silver hair braided with faintly glowing crystals, her gown fluttering in the soft updraft of the royal terrace. Her eyes, a strange, deep gold, met his through the mist, and in that instant she went completely still. Elias felt it too, that strange pull in the chest, the kind that halts breath. But before he could speak, before he could bow, a quiet ripple went through the alien guards. They glanced at one another as if something sacred had just happened, something forbidden. He didn't understand. He wasn't supposed to. He was just the envoy from Earth, a man carrying an offer of alliance, not mystery. Princess Lyra of Arendor, announced the royal steward. This is Captain Elias Varen, representative of the Human Union. Her gaze lingered a heartbeat too long before she turned away. Her expression softened, but her voice, when she spoke, trembled faintly. You've traveled far, Captain, she said. The stars must trust you. He smiled, trying to ignore the unease growing inside. Only the kind ones. The rest try to kill me. A few nearby courtiers chuckled politely, but Lyra didn't. She studied him like someone studying a wound they already knew would ache later. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. Arendor's skies were too quiet, too graceful. The room they'd given him was luxurious. Walls of woven crystal, soft light that responded to breath. But something in him kept replaying her eyes. That moment when she saw him and froze as if struck by memory. He told himself it was nothing. Maybe curiosity, maybe politics. But at dawn, as he walked the terraces overlooking the floating gardens, he saw her again, alone this time, watching the rising suns. When she turned and saw him, there it was again, that stillness. Her lips parted, but no words came. For a long breath, neither spoke. Then she whispered, You have his eyes. Whose? He asked softly. Her throat moved, but no sound followed. Then she stepped back, a look of pain crossing her delicate features. Forgive me, Captain, I was mistaken. But the tremor in her voice said otherwise. He should have left it there, respected the silence of a royal he barely knew. Yet something inside him, that human instinct to seek what shouldn't be sought, refused to rest. He had come to sign a treaty between two worlds, not unravel a secret written in someone's stare. Still, as the days passed, the memory of that look wouldn't fade. It wasn't attraction, not quite. It was recognition. And in her eyes, for one fleeting heartbeat, he thought he'd seen something impossible. Not wonder, not fear, but remembrance. Something deep in her knew him. Something that shouldn't have been possible across galaxies. And Elias Varen, against every logical thought he'd ever trusted, began to wonder. Had they met before? In another time, another life, or in the echo of a future neither could yet see. The next evening, the palace of Arendor shimmered with lights that hung in the air like floating lanterns. Music, soft, crystalline, unlike anything human, drifted across the terraces. It was meant to celebrate the first alliance between Arendor and Earth. Every guest smiled, but Princess Lyra didn't. She sat beside her father, the High Regent, her posture perfect yet her gaze unfocused. The court's laughter blurred into distant sound as her golden eyes wandered toward the far end of the grand hall, toward him, Captain Elias Varen, the human. He stood apart from the crowd, his uniform dark and simple among their luminous silks. Yet there was something magnetic in how still he stood, how quietly he observed everything. Lyra felt it again, that strange pull, that ache of memory she couldn't name, and she hated herself for it. Her people called it the echo, the impossible memory of souls connected beyond reason. But that was myth, stories whispered to children. Still, when Elias looked up and their eyes met across the hall, Lyra's heart missed a beat. She rose suddenly, drawing the attention of the room. Her father leaned toward her. Daughter? I need air, she said quickly, and left before he could stop her. Outside, the garden was bathed in silver light from Arendor's twin moons. The air shimmered faintly, fragrant with floating petals. Lyra pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm the strange trembling there. Then she heard footsteps. Elias appeared, hesitant but determined. "Princess," he said softly. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You didn't." Her voice was quiet. The hall was too loud. They stood in silence for a moment, the night wind carrying faint harmonies from the celebration inside. Elias looked at her, uncertain, then said, "You knew me." Lyra's fingers tightened around the edge of her gown. "I thought I did," she whispered. "From where?" She shook her head. "It makes no sense." "Try me," he said, with that gentle stubbornness that only humans seem to have. She met his gaze, searching his face as though hoping the stars themselves would explain him. "Long ago," she began slowly, "Arendor fought a war across the dark systems. A human fleet came to our aid, but they were lost, destroyed before we could thank them. I was a child then, and I remember one of their commanders, a man who saved me when our city fell." Elias's heart pounded. "That can't be. That was over a century ago." "I know." Their eyes locked again, not in disbelief, but in the quiet terror of possibility. Lyra stepped closer. "You have his eyes, Captain. The same scar, even." Her fingers hovered near the faint mark above his brow. "It's as if the stars returned him." Elias wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as imagination, but something deep inside, something ancient, stirred. He'd always dreamed of a woman standing in the light of twin moons. Always the same eyes. Always the same stillness when she saw him. He had thought it was fantasy. Now it felt like memory. Before he could speak, the palace bells rang, sharp and cold. An alarm. The guards rushed past, shouting in their own tongue. Lyra's expression hardened in an instant. "The southern shield is down," she said. "That's impossible." Elias followed her as she ran toward the terrace. The horizon glowed faintly red. Ships, dozens of them, descended through the mist, carrying the insignia of the dominion Arendor's ancient enemy. Lyra turned to him, her hair catching the light like fire. "Captain, you should return to your shuttle." He met her gaze. And though every instinct screamed to obey, he said quietly, "Not this time." And for the briefest moment, she smiled, the kind of smile that remembered courage, because in her heart she already knew. He had come back. The sky above Arendor burned. What had been a world of light and music was now torn open by streaks of flame. The Dominion's warships cut through the clouds like dark blades, their weapons raining bursts of crimson energy across the floating cities. The once peaceful air shimmered with falling embers that glowed like dying stars. From the royal terrace, Elias watched as the city below erupted into chaos, towers collapsing, sky bridges shattering. The scene struck him harder than any battlefield he'd known. He'd fought wars before, but this felt different. This was a home being burned. "Captain, this way!" Lyra shouted, her voice sharp and commanding now. The fragile calm of the princess was gone. In her place stood a warrior of light. Her gown shimmered into armor with a soft metallic ripple, plates forming from woven energy. The transformation stole his breath for an instant. "You have combat armor?" he asked, stunned. She glanced back, eyes fierce. "You think I wear gowns for decoration?" Even in the chaos, he found himself almost smiling, and then the floor shuddered as a plasma bolt hit the terrace. The blast sent both of them sprawling. Elias pulled Lyra behind a crystalline pillar as the impact wave roared past. "Your shields?" He shouted over the noise. "Failing!" They weren't ready for an attack this size. He reached into his belt, pulling out a compact human field beacon, a small device used for ground defense. "Then we'll buy time." Lyra looked at him, surprised. "You'd stay? This isn't your fight." "It is now," he said. She met his gaze, that same quiet recognition flaring again between them. Then she nodded once, her expression softening for just a heartbeat. "Then fight with me, Captain!" Together they sprinted through the broken halls of the palace. Guards and servants fled in all directions, the air heavy with smoke and fear. Lyra led him through corridors of glass and stone, her movements swift and precise. The world outside roared, but within her eyes there was calm, a calm that made Elias believe they could still win. They reached the outer balcony overlooking the southern shield. It shimmered weakly, huge cracks spreading across its luminous surface. Enemy dropships were landing near the gardens below. Lyra raised her hand, summoning a control crystal that hovered before her. The defense cores? I can't reach them remotely. I'll have to go down there. You'll never make it alone. I won't be alone. She looked at him and he saw it. Not command, not duty, but trust. Real trust. The kind that binds people even when logic says they shouldn't care. They leapt from the balcony onto a descending hover platform, the wind whipping through their hair. Elias gripped the beacon tightly, his mind focused but his chest heavy with an emotion he couldn't name. When they landed in the gardens, the Dominion troops were already advancing. Sleek armor, faceless visors, precision fire. Lyra moved like light itself, her weapon forming from the energy of the air, each strike a burst of gold. Elias fought beside her, human steel against alien tech, the two of them moving as though they'd done this 100 times before. At one point, a Dominion soldier aimed at her from behind, and Elias didn't think. He dove in front, firing his sidearm point blank. The blast hit him hard, sending him sprawling. Lyra turned in shock, catching him before he hit the ground. Elias! He grimaced, pain biting through him. Still breathing? Her voice softened, trembling. Don't you dare stop, he smiled weakly. You sound like someone who's said that to me before. Her golden eyes shone through tears and smoke. Maybe I have. And above them, the great shield flickered once more before beginning to die. The southern shield collapsed in silence, not a sound of breaking, but a fading hum like a final heartbeat. When the last shimmer vanished, Arendor lay exposed beneath the red clouds. Lyra stared upward, her breath unsteady, her armor dimming as exhaustion set in. Around her, the once perfect gardens were now torn earth and burning petals. The Dominion troops pressed forward, confident, relentless. Elias pushed himself to his feet, his uniform torn and scorched. If that was your last shield, he said between breaths, we need another plan. Lyra looked toward the palace, now half consumed by smoke, then back at him. There is one more way, she said quietly. But it's dangerous, he gave a faint laugh. Princess, I think we passed dangerous 20 minutes ago. She didn't smile. Instead, she moved toward a fallen pillar and pressed her hand against a glowing sigil beneath it. The ground shuddered as a hidden platform descended, revealing a chamber below. Blue light flickered from its depths. What is that? Elias asked, peering in. The heart of Arendor, she replied. An ancient core left by the first starfarers. It powers our city and our memory archives. But if we overload it, it could release enough energy to repel the Dominion. He frowned. Repel or destroy. Her silence was answer enough. Lyra, he said softly. If this thing explodes, it won't, she interrupted, though her voice trembled. I won't let it. He followed her down into the chamber. The heart pulsed in the center, a crystalline sphere suspended in streams of light. It looked alive, breathing softly with color. Lyra approached it reverently, her hands trembling slightly as she began to manipulate the glowing runes that encircled it. Elias stood close, his eyes scanning the alien technology. Can I help? She hesitated, then nodded. Stabilize the outer conduit. If the current reverses, it'll overload before I finish. He crouched beside her, his fingers moving quickly. Human engineering and alien design. Nothing matched, yet somehow it worked when they worked together. Sparks flared, the chamber humming louder. Sweat ran down Lyra's temple. She was focused, beautiful in her intensity. The kind of grace that comes from those who carry too much hope. Almost there, she whispered. Then, a surge. The light flared violently, throwing them both back. Elias hit the floor hard. The crystal core pulsed erratically, shadows flickering across the chamber walls like restless ghosts. Lyra gasped, her voice breaking. No, it's slipping. She reached for the core, hands outstretched, and for a moment it responded, its light softening. Then it struck her with a flash of energy, sending her crashing into Elias's arms. He caught her, pulling her close. Lyra! Her eyes fluttered open, the golden hue dimmer now. It's reacting to you, sir. What? The heart recognizes you. Her voice was faint. That's impossible. It only bonds to our line, unless... She stared at him, realization dawning, tears welling. You're not just him. You carry his echo, his spirit reborn. Elias shook his head, unable to comprehend. I'm human, Lyra, just human. Her fingers brushed his chest. Then humanity holds more than we ever knew. The heart pulsed again, softer this time, and the light wrapped around them both like mist. Images flickered in Elias's mind, flashes of another war, another lifetime. He saw himself, or someone who looked like him, standing beside Lyra beneath a shattered sky. Her younger self reaching for his hand, his voice promising, "If I fall, I'll find my way back." The vision vanished, leaving only the soft hum of the heart. Lyra looked up at him, trembling. "You kept your promise." Before he could respond, the ground above them shook violently. The Dominion troops had found their way into the palace. Explosions thundered overhead. Lyra steadied herself and whispered, "We're out of time." Elias rose, helping her to her feet. "Then let's make this count." And together, standing before the ancient heart of her world, they prepared to awaken the light that could save it, or end it forever. The chamber's air vibrated with power. The heart of Arendor pulsed like a living star, its radiance washing over the walls in waves of blue and gold. Every pulse echoed in Elias's chest, steady, powerful, familiar. Lyra stood beside him, one hand pressed against the heart's control sigil, her expression both fierce and fragile. The storm outside shook the city, and the walls trembled as Dominion soldiers drew closer. The end of Arendor was minutes away. "You're certain this will work?" Elias asked, voice raised over the rising hum. "No," she admitted, "but I'm certain we must try." She closed her eyes and began to chant softly in the ancient tongue of her people. The lights responded instantly, streams of energy spiraling upward from the floor, wrapping around them both. Elias felt his body lighten, his heart racing in rhythm with the pulsing core. Then came the voice. Not hers, but something older. A whisper inside his mind. "Do you remember the vow?" He staggered slightly, grabbing the railing. "Lyra, did you hear that?" Her eyes opened wide and bright. "Yes, the heart is speaking. It recognizes you." Elias took a breath. "Then maybe it remembers him too, the man you think I was." Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling but sure. "You are him, Elias. Maybe not the same flesh, but the same soul. You returned when the stars called. That is enough for me." Their gazes locked. 1,000 years of distance closing between them. For the first time since he landed on this world, Elias understood what had held her still that first moment she saw him. It wasn't fear. It was recognition, but there was no more time for wonder. The chamber doors burst open, a storm of metal and shadows flooding in. Dominion soldiers advanced, their visors glowing red, weapons ready. Lyra turned sharply. "I'll hold them." Elias moved beside her. "We hold them." Together. They fought side by side, a blur of motion and defiance. Lyra's light burned through the smoke, each strike of her blade a song of fury and grace. Elias moved with raw precision, his human reflexes sharper than he'd ever known. Every time one faltered, the other covered the gap. Every move mirrored memory, two halves of a forgotten whole. Still the enemy pressed in. A blast struck the ground near Lyra, knocking her to her knees. Elias dove to shield her as sparks erupted around them. The energy from the heart flared brighter, resonating with the desperation in his chest. He looked up. The Dominion commander aimed directly at them, weapon charged. Elias threw his arm forward, and suddenly and impossibly, light erupted from his palm, deflecting the blast in a blinding surge. Both of them froze. Lyra whispered, "The heart is flowing through you." He stared at his trembling hand. "Then maybe it knows what we're fighting for." With renewed strength, they stood again. Elias extended his hand toward the heart's core. The chamber filled with light so brilliant it banished every shadow. The energy surged outward, turning the floor into liquid gold. The Dominion troops cried out, their weapons melting into air as the wave consumed them. And then, silence. Only Lyra and Elias remained, standing at the center of the storm. The heart hovered quietly, its pulse slow and calm. The war outside had gone eerily still. Lyra's armor dimmed, her breathing heavy. "You've linked with it," she said softly. "But it's too much. The heart draws on your life to keep the shield alive." Elias looked at her and smiled. "Then it's working." Her eyes filled with tears. "You can't. You'll burn out before it stabilizes." He reached up, gently brushing her cheek. "You once told me I'd find my way back. You never said I'd stay forever." She shook her head, gripping his wrist. Please, there has to be another way. But the heart's light had already wrapped around him. He was glowing now, his outline fading like starlight at dawn. Lyra, he whispered, promise me you'll live. Promise you'll keep this world alive. Her voice broke. I can't lose you again, he smiled faintly. Then remember me. That's how I'll stay. And with one last breath, Elias pressed his hand fully against the heart. The world exploded in gold. The explosion didn't sound like destruction. It sounded like release. A wave of golden light burst outward from the heart of Arendor, sweeping through every broken corridor, every wounded garden, every corner of the trembling sky. It was not fire or weaponry. It was memory, pure and vast, carrying with it the echoes of every life that had once touched the planet. Lyra shielded her eyes, the brilliance surrounding her until all sense of direction vanished. For a moment she felt suspended in weightless stillness where no pain, no fear, just the sound of distant voices, warm and familiar, like the hum of 1,000 hearts in harmony. When she opened her eyes again, she stood alone in the chamber. The Dominion invaders were gone. The crystal walls glowed softly, calm once more. The heart hovered at the center, smaller now, pulsing gently like a sleeping ember. And Elias, he was gone. Her knees weakened and she fell to the floor, tears falling silently. Her hands searched for him, for any trace, any warmth. But all she found was a faint shimmer of light lingering in the air like stardust dissolving. Elias, she whispered, voice trembling. You promised to return again. The heart glowed faintly at her words, and for a brief moment she thought she heard his voice, distant, gentle, carried on the echo of energy. I'm still here. She gasped, lifting her head. Elias? No answer. Only the slow hum of the heart. Lyra rose unsteadily, her entire body trembling. She walked closer to the core. Its light was soft now, but within it, she saw images forming like ripples in glass. A man's outline, smiling faintly, eyes warm. Do you remember now? The faint echo of Elias's voice whispered. The first time we met, before the stars learned our names? Her breath caught. You remember too? I remember everything. The image flickered, unstable, fading in and out. She reached toward it, but her fingers passed through the light. Don't go, she pleaded. Please don't go again. I'm not gone, the voice said, softer now. I'm part of this world, part of you. The heart isn't a weapon, it's a bridge. It remembers what's worth saving. Lyra pressed a trembling hand to her chest. You mean, you'll live through it? Through the heart? A faint warmth brushed her skin like sunlight through a tear. If humanity's spirit is what kept me alive, then yes, it lives here now. With you. She smiled through her tears, the kind of fragile, broken smile that comes when grief and wonder share the same breath. Then this world will never forget you. No, the voice whispered gently. It will remember us. The chamber brightened once more, then dimmed to a peaceful glow. The connection faded, leaving only silence, but not emptiness. Lyra stood quietly for a long time. Outside, the wind had stilled. When she finally ascended the steps to the surface, the sky above Arendor was clear again, the red clouds gone, the city floating in serene golden light. Her people gathered in awe as she appeared, their faces illuminated by the dawn's soft fire. No words passed between them, only tears, only relief. They knew the war was over. The Dominion ships were gone, wiped away as though they had never existed. Lyra looked toward the horizon where the twin suns rose like two watchful eyes. Somewhere in that golden radiance she swore she saw his silhouette, just for a heartbeat, standing tall, smiling, looking back at her. And in that moment, the ache in her chest softened. She whispered into the wind, Rest now, Elias. You kept your promise. The wind seemed to answer with a whisper, warm, human, and familiar. And you kept yours. The world was silent again. But deep beneath the city, the heart pulsed once more, in rhythm with her heartbeat. Years passed. Seasons drifted through Arendor like songs, each one softer, brighter, healed. The scars of the Dominion War became gardens, and the shattered towers grew into spires of light once more. Peace had returned, but not because of weapons or treaties. It had returned because of memory. Princess Lyra, now Queen Lyra, ruled with the quiet strength of someone who had loved deeply and lost completely, yet never truly alone. She carried the same calm glow as the heart itself, and when her people looked upon her, they swore they saw starlight behind her eyes. She visited the heart chamber every dawn. It was her ritual, her prayer, her conversation. That morning, as the first rays of sunrise poured through the crystal walls, she stood before the core and whispered, "Good morning, Elias." The heart pulsed once, a soft golden rhythm that filled the air. She smiled faintly. "Still listening, aren't you?" Her voice was steady, though a quiet sadness lingered beneath. "The cities thrive again. The people sing your name in their stories. Even the children say your spirit watches them when they're brave." The light flickered gently like laughter. Lyra's expression softened. "I wish you could see it, how much hope you left behind." "I do," came the whisper, so faint it might have been the wind. Her eyes glistened. "Then you still hear me?" Always it was enough, those words, that presence. She didn't need him in flesh anymore. His essence was woven into the world, in the air, in the light, in the courage of her people. Humanity's soul had found a home beyond its stars, but one question had always remained. "Why did you come back?" she whispered. "Why risk everything again?" The answer came, soft as a heartbeat. "Because love remembers what time forgets." Her tears fell silently, landing on the luminous floor. "And what will happen when I'm gone?" "Then I will wait, like I always did." Lyra smiled through the ache. "Then one day, when the stars turn again, we'll find each other." The voice finished. She pressed her hand against the heart's surface, her golden eyes reflecting its glow. For a moment she saw his face there, clear, gentle, alive. "Until then, my light," she whispered. "Until then," the echo replied. The chamber fell quiet again, but it wasn't emptiness and it was peace. When Lyra returned to the surface, the sky of Arendor shimmered with a new constellation, one her astronomers had never seen before. It appeared directly above the palace, a faint human figure surrounded by rays of gold. She stood there watching it, her heart calm and full. The people soon named it the Star That Stayed. To them it was a symbol of the day humanity and Arendor became more than allies, the day two worlds remembered each other across lifetimes. As years passed and the legend spread beyond their system, travelers from Earth would sometimes arrive to pay homage. They'd stand beneath that golden star, hearing stories of the man who saved a world not by power, but by remembrance, and every now and then, when the wind blew softly through the crystal trees, those who listened closely swore they could hear a human voice, faint but certain, saying, "The stars never end where love begins." Lyra's name became eternal among both species, the queen who ruled through compassion, the woman who believed that memory was the true bridge between souls. And deep beneath Arendor, the heart pulsed quietly, eternally, its glow never fading. Within its light, two spirits remained, one of alien grace, one of human courage, forever joined in the rhythm of creation. No monument bore their likeness. No song captured it completely, yet anyone who looked up at the night sky could feel it, a warmth just beyond sight, reminding them that love, once found, never truly leaves because somewhere beyond every horizon, a princess still whispered to the stars, and the stars still whispered back.